Please be seated, everybody. So good evening and welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the Council and those watching online and in the room today. I'm chairing this meeting today as the Mayor is currently unwell. As many of you may know, Marco has suffered a mini stroke. So I'm sure we all wish him well and send him our best wishes and hope he makes a speedy recovery. He was actually supposed to be on holiday as well this week with his children for half term. And also today, I'll leave the joke to my colleague, Councillor Allen, when he gets to his bit. It's Cecilia's last council meeting, and we know that the financial situation has been challenging, and we are thankful for her support and dedication throughout this period. So I'd like to wish you all the very best and well for the future. Now, please welcome the Mayor's Chaplain, Father Seelan, who will be saying prayers this evening.
Heavenly Father, as we gather today for the council meeting, we humbly ask for your guidance and wisdom in our deliberations. May our discussions be marked by respect, understanding, the commitment to the well-being of our community. Grant us the courage to make the decisions that are just and fair, considering the needs of all our citizens. Help us to listen attentively to one another, to seek common ground, to act with integrity in the decisions we make. We pray for your blessings upon our city leaders and councillors and all those involved in this process. We pray for the sick. We pray for Marco. Pray for his recovery and good health.
Thank you very much. It's not on my notes here, and I'll assume it's either me or Rachel might announce this, but today we have David Lowndes in the chamber, so I'm sure none of you will object to him taking photographs, providing they're all good ones and not the ones they normally print. Yeah. Okay, so I'll now hand over to Rachel Edwards, who is the Head of Constitutional Services, to go through some housekeeping points. I'm sorry, Rachel, if I stole your thunder there, but it's all right. I wasn't sure.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and through you. To all present, please ensure that mobile phones are set to silent. In the event of an evacuation, please exit through the nearest doors at each end of this chamber, following council staff to the assembly point. As per council standing orders 28.1, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you'll be invited to address the meeting. The Deputy Mayor has confirmed that when addressing the chamber, he is happy for members to stand or stay seated, whichever they feel the most comfortable. All votes will be taken via an electronic voting system. If a recorded vote is requested, this will be taken in the normal way. Budget will be a recorded vote this evening. There is a points document. If you wish to raise a point, please raise the pink document and address the Deputy Mayor accordingly, stating which point you are raising. Finally, I would like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you are using your microphone. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Rachel. Turning to Neil on agenda item number 1 tonight. Are there any apologies, Neil?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We've received apologies from Councillor Sereste, Councillor Farid, Councillor Geraghty, Councillor Hillier, Councillor Khan, Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Knight, Councillor Barkham and Councillor Sabir. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully, members, will get the agenda over fairly quickly. The meaty substantive item of the budget, we'll have gone through lots of detail on that, so hopefully there won't be too much rough and tumble, and we might speed through the rest of the agenda. But turning to agenda item number 2, are there any declarations of interest from members and officers this evening, which are not already recorded separately on their individual registers of interest? Members, a general dispensation has been granted for all members should they have any pecuniary interest that enables them to debate and vote on the budget item later in the agenda. Any member who is more than 2 months in arrears with council tax must declare this now, as this will affect your right to vote on the budget item. I see no members indicating, and I'm told by our Head of Constitutional Services that everybody is up to date. Just in case. So, thank you all for your attention there. We'll move to agenda item number 3. I'd like to move the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January. Do I have a seconder?
You do indeed, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Dennis Jones, thank you. If there's no objection, I'll take that as agreed. So agenda item number 4, which I'll be making on behalf of the Mayor, which is the Mayor's announcements. So I'll just highlight a few of the things. So you're all invited to join the Mayor at 2 forthcoming events to raise funds for his nominated charities, which is on the 24th of February, flag raising in support of Ukraine. On the 28th of February, an Italian evening at the ICA, that's the Fleet, the Italian Community Centre. And for those that like a little bit more spice in their life, there is a curry night at the Gurkha Lounge on the 18th of March. Additionally, can I also remind you that the Council will be commemorating the COVID-19 Day of Reflection on the 9th of March. And finally, I would like to invite Councillor Hemorrhage now as Chair of the Constitution and Ethics Committee to inform us of the recipients of Civic Awards for 24-25. Councillor Hemorrhage, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. At the Constitution and Ethics Committee on the 3rd of February, it was agreed unanimously to avoid the following nominees of Civic Award in the following categories: Community Involvement Award, Alia Irodinko, Colin Slater, Daisy Robinson, Fazia Raymond, Gabriella Chandler, Gandhar Aldeki, Gary and Jamie Dorman, Helping Empower Lives in Peterborough, John Hibblewhite, Indian Friends of Peterborough, Leslie Kalina, Nick Pinner, Nishnat Sharma, Peterborough Army Cadets, Peterborough Care Leaders, Rajadi, Roger Kane, Terry Alton. Contribution to Arts and Culture, Nathan Murdoch and Pete Elderkin. Sport Award, Andy Wallman, Jamie Carter, Jonathan Bingham, Mark Over, Peterborough Roller Hockey Club, Ramesh Fampi. Business Award, Crowd Safe, Ian Smith, Smith's Funeral Directors, Ibar Razik, Hampton Pharmacy, Osman Rafiq, Glinton Chemist, Pengeli and Mizzen Veterinary Practice, Ergum Services Solutions, Waitrose and Partners. Young Persons Award, Iron Natta, Children in Care Council, Ethan Chan, Jess Ryan, Soup Walker, Peterborough Young Inspectors. Lifetime Achievement Award is Michael Schley. All recipients will be invited to receive their awards at the presentation evening, which will be held from 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 15th of May, in the engine shed at San Martin House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hemorrhage. Deserving nominees, as we take every year, and I'm sure if you need to get yourself on that list for consideration at a future date, I'm sure Councillor Hemorrhage will be able to assist you in how you go about doing that. So we'll move to item number 5 now. Councillor Dennis Jones, I understand you wish to make announcements this evening. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for stepping in at short notice for our Mayor, Councillor Marco Cereste. I was saddened to hear of his health issue, and I'm sure that members across the chamber will join me in wishing him a full and speedy recovery. I'd also like to thank Cambridge and Peterborough Mayor Dr Nick Johnson, who has announced he will not be standing for re-election in May. Nick made the announcement just hours after releasing the news the decision had been made to introduce bus franchising in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. As a long-time advocate of bus franchising, I was delighted to support him along with my Liberal Democrat colleagues. This will be a legacy that Nick can be proud of when we look back in years to come. We also owe him a debt of thanks for his commitment to support to Peterborough, including ARU Peterborough, and most recently additional money from the combined authority for the delivery of Signet Bridge. Construction will now begin the summer as a result. Only last week we had confirmation of active travel funding from the city awarded to the combined authority from Active Travel England. Our allocation will be used to complete the design of our new Thought Road travel scheme and aid further schemes across our fair city. 2 weeks ago, we received confirmation from central government of allocations for the new financial year. Details are included in the papers before you this evening, but the highlight is positive for our city. There's more money to tackle deprivation, homelessness, and for children's services. We'll also be getting extra money to mitigate the impact of the increase in employer national insurance contributions on our budget. The government's also extended the Family Hubs programme by a further year, allowing us to support even more families. We'll be receiving an uplift in the region of £400,000 to our public health grant. This is very welcome as Peterborough is underfunded in this area compared with councils of a similar size. I'm sure you'll agree with the most positive response from central government to the challenges we face in local government in quite some time. Whilst I've yet to get my own parking space, I appear to be a regular visitor to the House of Commons these days. First to attend a parliamentary visit with the combined authority and constituent councils to launch our participation in UK REEF in May. UK REEF is the UK's largest real estate and investment forum in the country. The aim is to position Peterborough as part of our region as a prime location for sustainable growth and development to national and international investors, and I'm looking forward, along with colleagues, to represent our city at the event. My second visit was to attend a breakfast event hosted by our MP Andrew Pates to support our colleges, university and other stakeholders to demonstrate that Peter is the place to be for the development of tomorrow's skills, given we are apparently the spaghetti junction for the national gas network as it looks to decarbonise by moving towards hydrogen and away from natural gas over the next few years. In other news, I was delighted to learn that the Cathedral has raised an impressive £150,000 of their £300,000 target for their Cathedral in Crisis campaign. This is fantastic news, as I'm sure you'll all agree. I was also pleased to hear that Peterborough has received a green grade as part of Homes England audit into our single homeless accommodation programme. We now have 17 units occupied by rough sleepers, with another 5 due to be occupied by April. Finally, I'm sorry to say that we're about to say farewell to our Director of Finance, Cecilia Booth, as this will be her last full council with us. We have undergone significant change in the past few years, and the experience, innovation and strong adaptive leadership that Cecilia has brought to the role has been a key part in tackling several difficult issues whilst helping to create a council that is forward-looking, ambitious and tackling its financial challenge head-on. I will very much miss working with Cecilia and her passion for her role, especially Treasury management. She will be a hard act to follow, but after 3 years at the helm, I respect her decision to move on to pastures new. I'm, however, pleased that Cecilia will remain with us until a replacement, Christine, who started her finance career here in Peterborough, joins us at the beginning of April. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Group leaders, I've agreed to extend the time you'll have to respond to the leaders' announcements to a maximum of 2 minutes. Councillor Farouk, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I equally wish Mayor Marcus Resti speedy recovery, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It was also very sad to hear that Dr. Nick Johnson does not wish to see Combined Authority Mayor re-election. We wish him well, life away from politics and in medicine. It was only a few weeks he signed off the bus franchise policy through, which will be his legacy, as the leader has pointed out. It was a privilege for me to sign the LTCP, which got combined authority transport policy on the road after many years of political disruptions. The bus franchise will benefit all the residents throughout Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Nick was also involved in heavily investing in Peterborough in further education and skills, transport and other infrastructure projects. We are forever indebted to him. My rural councillor friends, Councillor Elsie, Councillor Hiller, Councillor Boyce and Councillor Ormiston are grateful to him for providing funding for the rural bus routes, which are well used by our residents. We welcome more government support in areas such as homelessness, children's services and family hubs. Mr Deputy Mayor, was sad to see this week that Household Recycling Centre is introducing e-permits, in the process introducing more barriers to recycling and disposing of household waste, and will increase fly tipping. For the sake of saving little or no money, I would urge the administration to reverse this policy. I'm also pleased to hear that the cathedral has reached half of its target of £150,000. Public generosity in Peterborough is great. More than 1,200 people have donated so far. I still feel that Church of England needs to pick up the baton and fund the cathedral. Finally, Mr Deputy Mayor, may I pass my sincere thanks to Cecilia Booth for her contribution to this council for the last few years. And for me, it was a pleasure working with you. Your calmness in very difficult situations was always exemplary. And I wish you farewell and good luck in the future. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Allen, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Hope the clock's not running too fast. I'd particularly like to thank you for deputising for the Mayor, Councillor Sereste, in the current circumstances. I understand Marco was due to leave hospital this afternoon, which is good news, and I'm sure members across the chamber wish him a full and speedy recovery. We should, of course, acknowledge the work Dr Nick Johnson has put in on the issue of bus franchising and hope that any progress made on provisioning will be continued and further progressed by the newly elected Mayor. We wish Nick well on his forward journey. The funding for active travel is welcome, and we're pleased to see this moves forward the design of Thought Road Travel Scheme and supports other schemes across the city. We in the Conservative Group welcome the confirmation of government allocations for the financial year. Ironically, the confirmation that we'll also be getting extra money to mitigate the impact of the increased employer national insurance contributions is clearly good news, should I say, although it's an absolute truth that in this instance, the exchequer truly giveth in one hand what it taketh away in the other. We are pleased to see the Family Hubs programme is supported for a further year and that the underfunding of our city will be, to a degree, addressed with the uplift in the public health grant. It's good to know, however, that the administration will be going back for more. Let's hope, unlike Oliver Twist with his polite request for additional portion, they won't be disappointed. A city growing as quickly as ours has specific needs and requirements which must not be ignored by central government. Decarbonisation of the national gas network is indeed a journey we must be part of, as is the development of skills in our city. Indeed, I trust both of your trips to the Commons were worthwhile and productive, but hopefully not too addictive. The atmosphere of the Strangers Bar can be intoxicating, and I'm sure you don't want Mr. Pakes to become concerned for his job if you pop up there too many times. It's good to hear the Cathedral in Crisis appeal has already got halfway through the required target. As a city, we must continue to support this, as the final yards are often said to be the most difficult.
Councillor Allen, you're out of time, but to wrap up, please. Yeah.
I will finalise something, if I may. Thank you very much. There's one area to be resolved with the departure from this council, and that is how we should pronounce her name. Cecily, Cecilia, or Cecile. It's been a challenge. Anyway, Cecile, I do hope that as you are staying with us until Christine joins, you'll forgive myself and others for any continuing mispronunciation. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I knew it was coming, folks, so it was worth the wait. So it's a double act, I think. Councillor Hogg, I know you'll be restricted and find it difficult. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. May I start in joining the wishes for Marco's speedy recovery. Sorry to hear that Nick Johnson isn't standing again for re-election. Best wishes to him on the health front as well. Labour seems to be leaving a bit late to announce who they might be putting forward, although there are some strong rumours, I believe. I congratulate Nick on the decision on bus franchising. We need a resilient public transport offering that people can rely on, and franchising seems to be the way to best achieve this. Additional funding is indeed good news for us in Peterborough. Finally, a government that understands local government. If I'm being a bit picky, this helps, but doesn't solve the issues of years of conservative reduction on local government funding. Hopefully, if the economy grows, the government will be able to increase further our funding. And I was also pleased to hear that Peterborough received a green grade in part of Homes England audit to our, I can't even remember this bit, single homeless accommodation programme. Okay, sorry. Best wishes to Cecilia Booth on Pastors New. Your impact, drive and determination has steered us through a tricky time. Your successor will have some big boots to fill. A few other announcements. I'd like to recommend a trip to our museum this week to see the Lady Book exhibition. And if you go tomorrow, you can catch the Fairy Tales, the Princess and the Dragon event also. January has been busy for Vivacity, with over 72,000 visits to our gyms, sport halls and pools. I can also announce that following the feedback from the gym membership survey, we got about 350 responses. The cafe at the Premier Fitness is now looking at an increase of around 20% revenue year on year. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And last but not least, Councillor Day, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The Green Group, as others have, would also like to pass on our best wishes to Councillor Sereste and hope he makes a speedy recovery. We also send our best wishes for the future to Nick Johnson, who I have luckily been able to work with on the Combined Authority on the Environment and Sustainable Communities Committee. As Greens, we are pleased to hear of the active travel funding for the city. Councillor Skibsted, our active travel champion, is particularly pleased as she has been working hard chairing the walking and cycling working group, which is tasked to promote active travel schemes. We welcome the news of additional funding to tackle deprivation, homelessness and for children's services, as well as the uplift in public health. It's hard to note that in public health we are underfunded for an authority of our size. It would be good to explore the system that applies the funding formulas, and it is promising to note that the leader will be pressing for more funding for our growing city. On the issue of investment and growth, we know that if we continue to build more homes for more people, we must also ensure our infrastructure and services can meet those demands. So we're very keen to follow some of those funding pots and to make sure that we can meet those demands. Greens very much support the development of green skills in the city. It's vital as we look to meet our own net zero ambitions, and places like Peterborough can be at the forefront of developing new technologies, skills and opportunities. Finally, we also wish to thank Cecilia for the work she has done, not only on the budget, but also within the FSWG group, on helping to ensure councillors understand the financial situation we have found ourselves in, as well as helping us to negotiate our way through that. We wish her the very best for the future, and all of the Green Group look forward to working with Christine in the future as well. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you all very much, leaders. I might just add, because we never get a chance to do it actually, I too wish Nick Johnson the very best. I've known him and worked with him, and I think collectively, from the civic point of view, we would wish him well, and I'm sure he'll do very well back in his career as a doctor. In terms of legacies, that will be written for the future. And in terms of the potential next leader on this side of the chamber, maybe one of them's in, or mayor, I don't know. You hear all sorts of rumours. Who am I looking at? But it's not Dennis. Okay, folks, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is questions with notice by members of the public. And there have been 2 questions submitted by members of the public to this meeting. And question 1 is from Mr. David Pardo. Mr. Pardo, would you like to ask your question in relation to the latest position concerning the budget and the staff implications of protecting assets? Ooh. Phew. Sigh of relief, Jamil. Well, I'm sure that Mr. Pardo would have been here. However, you're happy to respond in writing to his question, presumably?
I can read my response out to the question is read, or I can.
Well, if he's watching online and it's public record, why don't you just read out the answer? And then he can watch it back.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As Mr. Pardo will no doubt be aware, in the current financial climate and the savings that are required to balance the budget, it's inevitable that staffing numbers have to be reduced. The council employs approximately 2,500 staff, including Peterborough Limited and City College. The actual numbers have fluctuated significantly over the last couple of years, and we have insourced services and also have had to decouple from Cambridgeshire County Council. We aim to minimise the need for redundancies, and at the same time, we have to ensure that business critical posts are filled. When somebody leaves and a vacancy is created, we always consider the need to fill the vacancy, or if a saving can be made, we will make it. All recruitment is subject to approval from an officer-led workforce board. By way of example, the council's contract with Serco was terminated on the 1st of April last year, and 282 members of staff were transferred to the council. The transferred services have been subject to review over the last 10 months, and this part of the workforce has been reduced by 76 posts, purely through attrition. A small number of remaining staff have been offered redeployment or redundancy, with a view to keep redundancies down to a minimum. All former Serco staff have been offered the option to transfer to PCC terms and conditions, thereby protecting their take-home pay.
Thank you. Now, as Mr. Pardo is not here, we could draw lots for a supplementary question if anybody's got something to ask. No, right, okay. We'll move on to the next question, question 2 from Ms. Karen Halmshaw. Ms. Halmshaw, would you like to ask your question in relation to call-in of the showground planning application?
Okay. Having sat through the 6.5-hour planning committee meeting on the 15th of October, I witnessed the democratic refusal of a planning application for 650 homes at the showground. Some of the councillors on that committee decided to seek a call-in of that decision to the Appeals and Planning Review Committee Council. Council officers subsequently approved that call-in request. My question is, why have the reasons for the officer's decision to approve the call-in request not been made public?
Now, Councillor Jamil, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would. First of all, I think the refusal was for the 850 homes rather than the 650 mentioned in the questions. No? Okay, I stand corrected. I apologise. The process for dealing with the call-in of decisions of the Planning and Environmental Protection Committee is set out in section 2.6 of part 3 of the Council's Constitution. The document is made available to the public on the Council's website. When a planning call-in notice is submitted, the Constitution requires the Executive Director of Place and Economy, in conjunction with the monitoring officer, to determine whether the request is valid. For the request to be valid, the notice must be given in writing or electronically. The notice must be submitted within 2 working days of the end of the original meeting. The notice must set out the planning decision that members wish to call in. The application must be dated and signed by 30% of the members present at the meeting where the resolution was passed. The application must give the reasons why the Appeals and Planning Review Committee should reconsider the decision, which must include either A, the correct application of the procedure wasn't applied, or B, relevant material planning considerations not being taken into account. The Constitution does not require the officers to assess the merits of the reasons set out in the notice. The assessment is a procedural one, which checks whether the criteria I have just referred to has been met, and as the criteria had been met, the call-in was deemed to be valid.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Just Ms. Harmshaw, do you, just momentarily, just give me a moment, sorry. If you have a supplementary question, then please put it now.
So in connection with the showground, I'll just do a quick background within a minute. As a born and bred Peterborean, I'm appalled at the loss of the showground facilities. Many showgrounds across the country remain successful. It could have been reduced in scale and saved. But if I have to accept that the redevelopment of the showground is inevitable, what is the point of a local plan which has been totally ignored? It provided for 650 houses alongside the retention of a functioning showground. So why has the council not compiled with its own local plan? And what is the point of a local plan if you're just going to ignore it?
Councillor Jamil.
Yeah, just coming back to the question, what our officers did was in line with the Constitution. Now, Planning Committee then makes a decision, and there are many instances where local plan, we've looked at it and Planning Committee has disagreed with it. But my point is that what will happen that day was in line with our Constitution.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jamil. We'll move quickly to item 7A then now, which is petitions from members of the public. I'm looking that way. I don't see any. I'm not aware of any from members of the public to raise a petition tonight. No? Okay. Are there any petitions on agenda item 7B from members this evening? Again, not expecting any, but that was 2 days ago. I don't see any here. So we'll move on to agenda item 8A through to C, which is questions on notice. And as today is a budget meeting, we have determined that there shall not be any questions from members to cabinet members. Same for 8D, questions on notice. No questions submitted to members by combined authority representatives. Now, members, very important as we come to the substantive bit of tonight's agenda. Please be reminded that if you leave the room during this next agenda item, you will be unable to vote on the recommendations when you return. Now, if anybody wants a comfort break, now is the time to raise your hand. If not, we'll press on with the next item, which is agenda item 9A, Executive and Committee Recommendations to Council, Cabinet Budget 25-26 and the Medium-Term Financial Strategy for 25 to 28. As Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, Councillor Jamil, would you like to move the recommendations before us tonight?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I certainly would. And as I start, I think it's only right that we start by sharing our appreciation and thanks for officers across the council, our finance team, the corporate and extended leadership team, and everyone who's worked hard on the development of this balanced budget and everything else required in the background to get us where we are this evening. I would also like to extend these thanks to members from all parties, particularly those on the Financial Sustainable Working Group, who have worked collaboratively, contributed ideas, and provided a robust challenge throughout the whole process. I think we'll all agree that this has been one of the most challenging years yet. And when we consulted on the budget, there was some difficult proposal on the table, and which is telling by the fact that throughout the feedback, we received over 1,400 responses. There were some themes with the feedback, but what stood out was the continuation of the support for the Lido. Now, as an administration, we've considered the feedback from public and members, and I'm delighted that we have updated this proposal within the budget presented to you this evening. And on that note, I would like to thank all the residents, partners, and groups who took time to read the proposals and provide valuable feedback. We've summarised these in the feedback and included it within the report. As members will also know, nationally and locally, government finances remain under immense strain, with the pressure driven by sustained higher rates of interest, increasing demand for services such as children's housing, adults, home to school transport, and the SEN school places. In 2025-26, we've included an additional £9.5 million in the budget to reflect the additional need. A key area of focus for the budget has been looking at how we can deliver savings and transform service delivery by implementing prevention and early intervention strategies, generating income, making the best use of our assets and resources, and maximising the use of digital technology and AI. £21.9 million of plans have been included within the budget to cover this. We've also committed £2.5 million to invest in children's services to improve practice and outcomes for our children. The financial settlement announced in December has been fundamental in delivering a balanced budget. This included a new children's prevention grant and a targeted deprivation fund, of which the council will receive £6 million. This provides us with a glimmer of positive that future funding reforms will see funding more appropriately distributed. Although the funding picture is much better than we expected, we are still proposing a 4.99% in the increase in council tax, in line with the government expectations. For most households in Peterborough, this means an extra £1.24 per week. This isn't a decision we've taken lightly, but is key to setting a balanced budget and meeting the needs of our city. The report sets out £200 million of investment over the next 3 years in the capital programme, £110 million of which is in the tax year 25-26. This includes key schemes such as the station quarter, and investment in our schools, our properties, digital solutions, housing, and a children's residential home, which the idea which came from the Financial Sustainability Working Group. The cost of borrowing is still high and takes up 17% of our net budget. Therefore, our priority remains only to borrow absolutely where necessary, and we continue to drive the sale of surplus assets to repay debt and to bring the costs down. We recognise proposing a balanced budget is testament to everyone's hard work this year, but I must draw your attention to the robustness statement, which starts on page 31 of the pack this evening. This statutory statement by our CFO makes clear that the budget contains moderate to high risk of a moderate to high degree of risk, and our reserve levels are not sufficient to manage the risks ahead. It remains imperative that we continue to close the £5.4 million overspend in the final quarter of this financial year, which will improve our reserves position. During 25-26, it is essential that all savings are delivered on time and in full. In addition, other pressures and risks being fully mitigated. By delivering these expectations, we will improve the council's financial resilience and put ourselves on a more sustainable financial footing for the future. Lastly, I'd like to remind everyone present today that this is the draft budget until we pass it through. Although we're not expecting there to be huge changes, there are a few technicality estimates that have been finalised and are in the figures before you today. We have been open as possible about these and highlighted these expected changes in the report from when the draft came out. I'd like to draw my attention to a close and be grateful for your consideration of the report today, and I ask you to pass the budget today and remind all of us that this budget is a result of work that's been done by the Financial Sustainability Working Group over the last year. This contained members, 3 members from the Conservative Group, 3 members from the Liberal Democrat Group, 3 and 4 members at times from Peterborough First, and 3 members from the Labour Group. So it is a budget that's been arrived at by members of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. I like your optimism. I understand that Councillor Dennis Jones is to be seconding this. Councillor Jones, are you happy to second the recommendations? And do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I am indeed happy to second, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I will reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Members, by just way of a reminder before I call for speakers and debate and questions, there is no time limit on your length of speech, but please, I would urge you not to kind of overdo it. And I will also allow people to speak more than once if it's completely different than something you forgot. So if you're going to speak, try and roll everything you've got to say and what you've got to say rather than keep coming back. Otherwise, we will be here forever and a day because it's not something we've not debated and run through already. So please keep your comments and remarks concise and to the point. Okay, may I call upon any speakers? Councillor Hogg. Yeah, okay. Councillor Ormston, Councillor Elsey, that's as far as I go, Councillor Day. So in that order, not too many, Neil, and then I'll just look over your shoulder. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Spoiler alert, I won't be brief. I will indeed be continuing the tradition of properly laying out the Liberal Democrat group's position on the budget. I fully expect this budget to be passed with the Conservative group leader and the Conservative chair of the FSWG both signing the budget consultation document and cancelling the last meeting of the FSWG as there would be no more questions. There should be no more questions to answer. I would conclude from that the Conservative group will be supporting this Labour administration budget. The Liberal Democrat group does, however, have some issues with the budget as it stands. Firstly, we recognise that even Cecilia Booth, our Section 151 officer, has stated that this budget carries a higher level of risk around the delivery of savings. A high level of risk around the delivery of savings, a greater risk than has gone before. When we think back to last year, we had a severe issue with the non-delivery of savings for last year's budget, which meant that we had an in-year deficit of £11 million, which took a lot of time and effort to close. So when we considered that against the even more precarious level of high risk savings in this budget, what kind of in-year deficit could we be facing later in the year? We also have a serious issue with how some of these savings for this year's budget have been delivered, are to be delivered. There is a cut to the grant. There was a cut to the grant of the Dementia Centre, which was announced as a saving agreed in the budget, when most of the members of the FSWG assumed that the saving agreed related to the relocation of the centre and the disposal of the property currently being used rather than a grant cut. We've had two changes to policy regarding the householders' waste facility. Firstly, around limiting DIY waste, and more recently, the online permit scheme for only householders from the PCC area. A budget line for that stated, we are proposing to introduce a scheme to limit access to the household recycling centre to Peterborough residents only. What this doesn't mention was it was decided to also restrict households to only one car permit. Where was the cabinet or cabinet members' decision on this? Apparently, it didn't need one. In a previous budget, it was decided to introduce charging for replacement and new bins, and yet this needed not one but two cabinet member decisions in order to get through. It seems that the governance of this council is being pared down, leaving little opportunity to make legitimate challenges. With all these taken into account, it is disconcerting to think, what are we actually signing up for in this budget? What cleverly worded sections are hiding policies we haven't discussed? We're also worried about the delivery promised on this budget. There is a lot of budget savings that show the same savings for the next 3 years. This essentially means that there's no lead into these savings. They are happening from the start of the financial year. Do we have the capacity to deliver all these within the next 2 months? Certainly previous years would suggest We haven't. A clear example of this is the management structure review, looking to save £2 million. Surely, even if the review was to be done and dusted in April, redundancy costs money, and there doesn't seem to be provision for this. We are encouraged by the changes in the budget savings outlined for leisure and heritage and library services. Keeping open the Lido, the blanket closure of the majority of libraries to just 3 has been postponed. The closure of cafes has been halted, and the transfer of leisure facilities to associated schools to run has been paused. Now, it seems that keeping the Lido open will mean a saving of only £100,000 can be realised, not the figure of £400,000 in the budget consultation document. However, it seems that the other changes will be cost neutral, as there is no other change to this line in the budget. I mean, really? Maybe that is why it is now just listed as a total and not broken down as in the consultation document. The capital programme set out for a plan of spending over the next 4 years of around £200 million, of which 68 million is coming from PCC. The rest of the grants and other third-party contributions. But it's heavily loaded to the next year, more than half of the total amount. Again, do we have the capacity to deliver this size of expenditure? Remember that delayering exercise, stripping out £2 million in management, is going to leave us with even less capacity. Asset disposals. We've had a review of community assets going on in various guises since 2013. We cannot keep the guillotine hovering over our beloved local community hubs and libraries, the disposal of which unlocks big savings in maintenance, but is chicken feed when it comes to potential capital receipts. Certainly not when compared to the Hilton Hotel and the TK Maxx buildings. I mean, the TK Maxx was bought for a purpose and then never used, and yet still it sits there years later. Our buildings are quite literally falling apart, and their value is far below their potential. We simply cannot cut out the heart of our communities. We need a bold plan to revitalise and repurpose these buildings to meet the needs of our city and rural areas. If we are to hand over these assets to community groups to run, we can't just wash our hands. We need to stand alongside them to help them steal through the pitfalls ahead. So in conclusion, you'll be glad by that word, there are simply too many holes in this budget and a suspicion of what the actual delivery of saving will look like given this year's experience. We won't be voting for this budget as our conscience will not allow us to support it. We fully expect the budget to pass, however, but give notice that we will be doing our job to hold the administration to account in its delivery. We hope that we can see significant changes to the FSWG to allow for better pre-scrutiny of next year's budget as it evolves, and not to be bogged down with briefings, and dare I say it, if we need to increase the number of meetings to get through the work, so be it. Thank you.
Okay, who won the sweepstake? It was 5 minutes. Nobody? Thank you, Councillor Hogg. We got Councillor Ormsted next.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. I wish to start by thanking Cecilia, Emma, and everyone involved in putting this budget together. It is no easy task. We all know the financial pressures we face are significant. This budget is attempting a highly difficult balancing act of meeting immediate needs while planning for long-term sustainability. Difficult decisions have to be made. This isn't just about cutting services, but finding solutions to support optimisation, smarter ways of working, and maximising value for money from every pound spent. There are consultations outlined within these documents, which, much like the localities review, will undoubtedly cause great concern for operators and residents alike. Transparency and regular communication are going to be absolutely paramount as we go through these processes. I've said it before, and I will say it again. This coming fiscal year, for numerous reasons, is going to be a huge financial challenge. The safety net of using reserve funding is not going to be a practical option this time around. With this in mind, I believe the spending moratorium has to stay in place for at least the first quarter of the next fiscal year. After the joint scrutiny meeting on the budget last month, a watching resident commented on how impressed she was with the level of engagement, the depth of scrutiny, and how councillors interacted with one another. If it wasn't for the joint scrutiny meeting and the cross-party work completed in FSWG, the Financial Sustainability Working Group, I have no doubt this budget would look rather different. No single person is going to be responsible for making this budget a success or a failure. The outcome of this budget will sit collectively on all of our shoulders, depending on how we handle each opportunity and challenge in this coming year. Behind all the text and numbers in these budget documents are people's lives and livelihoods. It is therefore only right that we robustly scrutinise and raise any concerns throughout the year. However, it is also absolutely imperative that we continue to collaborate on any potential alternatives and not just raise concerns in isolation. While we have a minority administration and cross-party practices such as FSWG and potentially a new financial scrutiny committee meeting coming down the line, budget should be seen as an opportunity to showcase the huge amount of cross-party work that takes place across this chamber, or this room, you know what I mean. We all know that the budget is largely a blueprint, a series of projections. They will change as the months go by. Collectively, we must make sure that this time next year, the financial position feels much better than it does as we sit here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Gavin Elsey next.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The unfortunate part of going third is that a lot of what you were going to say has already been said. So I'll cut down what I was going to say, but I'm deeply uncomfortable with this budget and much of the narrative around it. We've been told by Cecilia, our S151 officer, that this is a risky budget, described by the improvement panel as a medium to high risk budget, that this year is the hardest, and that the council is facing challenges way beyond anything it has ever had to face. I accept that, and I accept that difficult decisions need to be made. However, I'm not convinced that through this budget we are taking on those decisions. Last year we had, for the first time in our history, a budget passed with unanimous support. And it was presented to us as realistically achievable, but we didn't make the savings suggested in last year's budget, and last year's was a far lower risk budget than this one. My concerns are that apart from large increase in council tax, which if passed is something that the council can realise, many of the items are effectively rehashed salami slicing from areas that we have looked to for savings in the past with mixed results. It concerns me that the narrative is understandably upbeat and positive, but if you read the detail, it isn't the case. I'll give you a couple of examples. We're going to make the city cleaner, more vibrant and more used by cutting the jet washing programme in the city centre and by cutting the spring clean. We're going to tackle the well-known and well-documented drug dealing and antisocial behaviour in Central Park by removing all permanent staff over the winter. What I can't see us doing is really cutting our cloth according to statutory delivery and the services most valued by our residents in favour of important, well-meaning but aspirational policy. An example, and I know it won't be a popular one, but we are beyond populist decisions, would be: we are and we continue to drive our ambition to be a net zero city. Now, I'm not suggesting that this isn't the right aspiration for our city. We all have our own opinions about the validity of it. But here's the thing. Whether the target is net zero by 2030 or 2040, we know that devolution is coming and we will be part of a much bigger unitary authority likely by 2028, but certainly before 2030. So we will not be the authority we currently are at either 2030 or 2040. And we have absolutely no idea where the authorities who are joining us will be with their net zero objectives, nor if it will be a priority for the New World Authority, nor who the officers or indeed the members of the authority will be. So we're continuing to drive this agenda. And I know all the talk of it not costing the council, but that just isn't true. It isn't entirely grant funded, and we have officers who are specifically employed to drive this agenda forward. So there is a significant cost to the authority. And we know we are extremely unlikely to meet the objective because we won't, as a current organisation, even exist. Now, I've only used this one area to highlight the issues, but it is big, emotive and sensitive areas such as this that we should be looking at, not the habitual annual salami slicing of unachievable savings. That's why I can't support this budget. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elsey. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Despite the welcome uplifts from government, Mr Deputy Mayor. Despite the welcome uplifts from government, this is still a difficult and challenging time for us and many other councils. If so many other councils are facing similar challenges, then there is still clearly something wrong with the system at large. This is still an austerity budget. When all austerity measures are taken into account, including cuts to public services and changes to tax and welfare, the poorest tenth of the population are by far the hardest hit. Economic stagnation, the rising cost of living, cuts to public services and falling incomes create a deeply damaging situation in which thousands in our city and millions across the UK are struggling to make ends meet, whilst allowing the richest to bear a comparatively small burden of the pain. As a group, we still seek clarity over what will happen with our museum and libraries. That's not been currently finalised in this budget. However, we are pleased to note that we listen to the voices of residents over these issues and that the Lido has been saved and changed our original position. We hope that the reviews on libraries and museums will prove fruitful for our residents, but that's still a large question mark. We're extremely concerned about our reserves position and the precarious nature of the savings in this budget. As already has been mentioned, they will be difficult to meet. And we recognise although we do recognise the work of officers and members on this budget, and our group also recognise that savings plans put forward by our group have been worked on and included in this budget. We will continue to work on and with the FSWG group, and we are listening carefully to this debate. As our group has no whip, we will be having a free open vote. Thank you.
I have one more speaker left, so if you want to speak, just indicate, and it's Councillor Ellis. Oh, blimey, not all at once, but Neil will get those. Keep your hand up, John. Councillor Ellis, please.
Thank you,
Just
Mr.
keep your hands up
Deputy
if you
Mayor.
want to speak. Just keep, so you can write them down.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would first like to thank our officers, members of the Financial Sustainability Working Group, consultation responders and councillors who have responded for all the hard work over many months building this budget for next year. This budget belongs to the whole council, so as already stated, I would hope all councillors support it to make sure we have a balanced budget and a stable financial position for the next year and going forward. Now is the time to put forward a budget collaboratively together, which we have all been working on for many months. This is for the good of Peterborough. Before I speak about budget proposals within my cabinet portfolio, I would like to express my thanks that Peterborough Lido mothball proposal was withdrawn. I have never been in support of this proposal. I thank particularly the Executive Director for Place and Economy, Adrian Chapman, for working with Peterborough Limited and Friends of the Lido in reducing the savings proposal so it can remain open. Within my portfolio, a number of budget savings have been identified that are needed to help balance the budget from environment and highways and the place and economy budget. Very difficult decisions have had to be made. I didn't become a councillor to cut services, so this is alien and new to me. But with a £23 million deficit in the budget, needs must. Where possible, we have used outside grant money from government, combined authority or elsewhere to fund capital projects. One example of this is the Signet Bridge, which will provide a much needed safe commuter link between two growth areas, the embankment and Fletton Quays, for both cyclists and pedestrians. We will also be receiving a grant of £4.7 million from government later this year to help cover the cost of collecting, managing, recycling and disposing of household packaging waste. We have also looked at ways to increase income, and over future years we need to continue to do this. And we will make efficiency savings. For example, transferring the Natural Environment Service to our Environment and Climate Change Service. A major part of savings within the environment budget comes from Aragon Direct Services, just over £2 million. This includes increases in charge and fees, ceasing internal courier service, and reducing the cleaning schedule in Central Park toilets, which does not mean the current cleaning doesn't continue, but corrects the budgeted cost. Ending the hot power wash in the city centre, reducing crematorium planting, etc., etc. Also, I would like to removing the Gladstone Lensman and the Inter Park and Central Park winter attendance, because at the moment, currently, they get a higher service than is provided in these areas than other areas of the city. We will work with Peterborough Limited to reduce the impact as far as possible, and with volunteers to help grow additional capacity. Personally, this has been a very hard decision to make in that area, but we need to make savings to balance the budget. I have been impressed by the constructive consultation responses from the Friends of Inter Park and the Friends of Central Park. I will work with them to help mitigate against any issues from this as far as possible. Jobs, when there is no attendance at the parks, will be covered by general Aragon staff working across the city at the same frequency as all other parks, but will be infrequent and on demand. This includes weeding, picking up branches, twigs, raking, hedge cutting, etc., and litter picking. Our solar panel estate is a pressure because we're not making as much surplus income as we would like. And now for some good news in the budget. The Peterborough Integrated Renewables Infrastructure includes 13.5 million in 26-27, which is 100% grant funded. Local Authority Treescape Fund, 158,000 over 2 years, completely grant funded. 120,000 for play areas improvements program over each of the next 2 years, covering upkeep and replacement for the 2,414 individual items of play equipment across the city. £100,000 for Central Park paddling pool, which will be open this summer, so long as the equipment works. And we will work with the community going forward on improvements for this water facility to see what they'd like to see, and then look to construct it for summer 2026. And also Aragon Direct Services fleet renewal, £2.5 million, replacing vehicles at the end of their life, considering affordable options and reducing CO2 emissions. Savings are also being made in highways and infrastructure by taking away average speed cameras at 2 locations, Stand Ground and Fletton Parkway. Whilst we pay to maintain these, we get no income from fines. Instead, we will continue to work with local schools, groups and residents on speed awareness and reduction. We will come out of the NHT survey, use new technologies to make efficiencies in our systems. We have an option to extend the Milestone Highways contract for a further 5 years, which could produce cashable benefits to the City Council and further efficiencies on a contract that has high levels of satisfaction from the public. A reduction in the maintenance budget through most of the work we do is funded from grants rather than revenue budgets. We are removing the budget pressure for historic authorities that accessed Milestone contract through our tender, and also after hearing representations from councillors at council meeting, including Councillor Allen, and from City Council highways officers, we have put money back in to fund a one-off cleanse of a high-speed road network gullies, and then a biannual 50% every year cleanse thereafter. After £50,000 was cut from the budget every year since 2019. So we're trying to do something about this. This will include Burgess Boulevard and the parkways. So in conclusion, it's been a hard year putting this budget together. As I said at the start, thanks to everyone for your contribution. Let's go ahead as a City Council now and let's agree this budget. So please vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Now I've got Councillor Ali, Rangzeb, Allen, Howard, Harper, Antunes, Councillor Iqbal, and okay, you want to speak as well, Councillor Rafiq. Okay, so that's who I've got on the list so far, so I'll get through these. Okay, I don't see anybody else, Neil. So, Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I want to start talking about the merits of FSWG. I think it's a really good working group where I think a lot of cross-party work has taken place. We as Greens, we've used this group as a means of feeding into the budget and helping to shape the budget. So we can say we are partially responsible for the budget that we've landed on, but there's certainly areas of the budget that we're not happy with, and you've heard my colleague Councillor Day talk about some of those. In terms of positives for this budget, many of you will know I've been pushing towards the City Council opening up its own children's home. We've had a commitment, and that's now in the budget, and we're very, very pleased about that. We understand that that will recognise some savings, although in the current in-year budget we've not recognised any savings, but for future years we are looking to get some. We're also reviewing the home to schools transport, and that we expect will recognise some savings too. We're not happy about the reserves position. Neither is the improvements panel. It's been mentioned by Councillor Hogg, Councillor Day, and so on. And that's what really stands out for me in this budget. Now, we should be on about 5% of total net spend. The general fund, given the in-year overspend, is going to be dropping down to the low single-digit millions, and that represents about 2% of the total budget. So any kind of budget that you sign up to is going to be a high-risk budget with that level of reserve. And I think that's the one thing that we really need to bring out. The other thing I wanted to mention was about the cancellation of the last FSWG meeting. I think it's important to understand that the officers, they have teams of people looking at the numbers and they're looking at the budget. It's their day job. They're very, very fluent with what they're working with. They're very, very familiar with the numbers that they're looking at. With members, we spend, a few hours a week trying to get our heads around numbers that have taken the whole year to pull together. So to be denied the opportunity to scrutinise further, I think does need to be looked at. There's plenty of things that we're trying to grapple with. We're dealing with in-year overspends, demand-led pressures, inflation risk, capital spend, capital refinancing, government grants, ring fencing, the MTFS, and all the interactions between each of these different things. So every opportunity we have to ask questions is time well spent, and the implication that we have had ample opportunity is just not reflective of the actual situation. We've really challenged officers to do things better, find savings while saving our key services, and we should highlight the collaborative working of the Children's Director, who's included these two key items that I've mentioned earlier. I'd hope that we can be as challenging to other directors as well, and particularly we need to find savings on some of our biggest budget spends, like adults and health, which accounts for about 30% of the total net budget. That is something that we will be looking to investigate going into the next financial year. We need to be very, very careful with the money entrusted to us, and we need to spend absolutely what we have to and not what we can. And then finally, coming back to our reserves, like I said, we are down to about 2%. Failure to stick to budget could be catastrophic. Our incoming CFO needs to work alongside our CEO, and we need to ensure that we're tracking experience against plan. The one thing we've heard regularly throughout the year is we signed up to a very aggressive budget. And I was quick to point out that you don't put your name to a budget unless you're committing to meet those savings. We've committed to meeting those savings, and now we need to track things, particularly that are demand-led, to see if we're tracking to expectation. And the moment that we go off track, we need to be flagging that. We need to try, like we have done, we've done an overspend over the last 3 years. We need to try and get through the next year with an underspend. As ridiculous a statement as that sounds, we really need to work towards an underspend so as to build back our general fund. So, to summarise, given the precarious nature of our reserves, the current in-year overspend, the fact that the review of the libraries is still on the table, I personally can't vote for this budget, but I do want to recognise the hard work that's gone into putting it together. I want to recognise the challenges that have been overcome, and I want to recognise the hard work done by Cecilia, Emma and her team, and also the FSWG. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Rangzeb, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I am really frustrated and annoyed for the fact that we are kind of held hostage to our reckless past decision making. Therefore, we are having to vote for some of the decisions that we don't necessarily agree to. Take the example of St. Martin House. We had no choice but to buy it with further borrowing. The Hilton Hotel, we have no choice but to borrow more to complete the project. We have accumulated a mountain of debt. Therefore, as a result, we are having to pay nearly just under £40 million a year on the debt financing. In my opinion, it is because of this mountain of debt we are having to vote second year around and maybe future years as well to increase, well, not surely future years, of an increase of over 9% without having to go. This is the maximum that we can increase without having to go to public. And despite of these increases, we are still not so sure that we will get out of this difficult financial situation. I am therefore kind of annoyed again that I'm left with it without any choice, but maybe to vote for it or maybe abstain for it. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rangzeb. Brief. Councillor Steve Allen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mine are probably observations rather than getting down into the weeds of finances. I think we're grateful that we are members of the Financial Sustainability Working Group. It's a very good forum and it gives us a chance to look at opportunities and ways to take things forward. So that's a very sensible route to have a pre-budget interaction with other party in the chamber. It's definitely challenging circumstances, and they will be continuing. Homelessness and housing demand, adult social care, children's social care, home to school transport. These are very unpredictables, and so that always puts a spin on the decision-making process. Many things in the budget I'm happy that the outcome that the administration are putting forward, but the Householders Recycling Centre, yes, I like the idea of Peterborough residents only, but as has been mentioned elsewhere in this debate, to have one car per household makes no sense, and I don't think that would cost any more for the council. It just puts people off thinking it's a good idea. Concern about the security of the libraries, I really do think we need to get down on that one. This has been going on for some time. Councillor Howard and I did a review of this some 5 years ago, and we've still not made a decision where we're going with it. And the value of libraries, it cannot be underestimated, because it's really part of the social fabric of so many people's lives. And it cannot just be books. It can be about other kinds of learning and libraries of things. So we must look at that again. I am concerned about the removal of the staff from the two parks, in particular Central Park, which is a jewel in the crown, overused statement, but to have no staff at that location will only see vandalism and the degradation of that location. And I know my colleague Alex Rafiq is very concerned about Itter Park, and I support him with his concerns. I think we may have to think the unthinkable, and this is just an observation, not a suggestion. To maintain services without substantial government support, we may need in the future to go above the 4.9. Now, let me tell you that I will not be voting for the budget, neither will I vote to bring it down. So abstention will be my route. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor John Howard.
Thank you. And for you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, well, I feel less nervous than I did a year ago. However, I feel nervous for Councillor Jamil, the way the debate's going. So it's interesting to hear people's thoughts. And I think, in summary, our challenges remain as hard as they were a year ago, if not harder. I'm very glad that the leader, Councillor Jones, has carried on the FSWG. I think when Councillor Fitzgerald and former Councillor Andy Cole set that up, a brilliant way of working, and I'm delighted that the administration have carried it on. And I'm especially thankful that for some strange reason he kept me as chair of it. But, you know, bravery points for that, I think. But as we've gone through FSWG, we've gone through budget briefings, we've gone through budget scrutiny, you know, members have had a lot of chance here to discuss and challenge the budget before us tonight. And we've covered lots of hot topics. You know, we've got a better outcome on the Lido, the museum, and of course my personal favourite, along with council, and the libraries. I think the language is better than it was a few months ago. That's thanks to the conversations in FSWG. But for me, the challenge is the results is the proof of the pudding. I really passionately believe that we could do something better with the libraries and the museum without having to make the cut. So I really hope that plays out as it should through FSWG. And I think, you know, it's going to be a tough year again. The demand for adults and children's continues to rise, and with inflationary pressures in the mix as well. It's really hard for the public to understand where our money goes. The majority of it goes into adults and children's services, which luckily for residents in the city, not many residents are having to rely on those services. Thank goodness. And I think that's the thing that's really tough when we talk through these budgets. We end up very focused on the things that meet the public test, but make up such a small part of the actual budget before us. You know, so it's not just a budget for the Lido, it's a budget to look after the adults and the children of this city as well. And we must remember that as we're voting on it. And our role as members isn't to be the area experts, but we're to bring the challenge to officers on the public's behalf. And I think we've done that. We've done that the last year. We've done it on the hot topics. But there's a big work piece for the year ahead. Lowering reserves, lots of red and amber savings in this budget. And for me, the next thing that the FSWG really needs to stretch its legs on in the year ahead is focusing on how we can do adults and children's services better and through transformation. We have to watch these reserves and we have to watch these red and amber savings and make sure that we get them. And, you know, we probably go away from some of the more populist areas, and we really have to roll up our sleeves on those areas of the budget, to be fair, because that's where the money is and that's where we really have to drive the savings through. And on the budget vote, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, hearing what people are thinking. You know, crikey, I mean, Peterborough First, you've got some history a year ago. You know, you wouldn't have been in administration without the support of Labour. You certainly wouldn't have got the budget through last year if all parties hadn't supported it. I think it'd be a really poor sign for your group in particular to vote against, let alone abstain. And I hope you reflect on your name and the support you had last year, and reflect on future relationships cross-politically that I think a year ago we had, you know, everyone in support of the budget. And I think it'd be a really backward step to not see that sentiment continue. We've come a long way since last year's budget, and I don't want to see us undo the work that's been done in that last year. Last year was unanimous. This year looks tough. You know, thank you, Councillor Elsie. You can talk when you want to talk. And I think we need to respect the fact that the improvement panel's leaving us, and we have to show a bit of a united front on the work piece that needs doing in the year ahead. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you to Councillor Howard. Councillor Chris Harper, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay. I must say, just in response to that particular comment, that Peterborough First is probably the least political group in this room, a group of independents that join together. And the people that do the most politics are the big groups in this room, which is chosen to join them. So I don't take that on board at all. Firstly, though, may I offer my thanks and congratulations to officers for a very comprehensive budget report and members of the FSWG for their efforts during this past year. On a positive note, looking at the budget, the proposal to increase the fines for fly tipping is most welcome. It's a scourge on our city. I wonder, though, how possible it is that this can be realised with cuts in staff. Also, the proposal to finally clean the major road gullies and drains is very welcome. These have been seriously neglected for far too long. Our major roads and verges offer a very poor impression to those visiting or travelling through or around our city. They are a disgrace. Can I therefore, Mr. Debney, if you don't mind, thank those people such as Peterborough Wombles and those individuals and groups that perform community litter picks. Without their efforts, I hate to think what our city would look like. Now for my concerns. I'm still really concerned about the libraries. This hasn't been taken off the table, this has just been pushed to the side. Those that have taken the time or indeed frequent libraries will understand just how valued they are, not just for borrowing books, but as community hubs, safe spaces, places to share and learn. I, along with 3 of my fellow Peterborough First councillors, recently accepted an invitation to the Woodston Community Library. Together we witnessed just how well a library can be used and the commitment and passion from Jenny Story, the chair of the Friends of Woodston Library, along with those that were in attendance. It was extremely impressive. The reduction in days for opening of the museum and art gallery, along with Flag Fen. I know the leader, and I've seen that in the press, has visited and taken time to meet with those from the museum in an effort to try and find a way to make it more financially sustainable. He and others must be impressed with the passion and knowledge from the museum and Flag Fen team. This only goes to show how important the cultural and leisure offer is for the people of Peterborough. What high-tech, high-wage company is going to be attracted to our city if our city is allowed to become a cultural desert? If we have nothing to offer, those staff won't come, they won't relocate, and we'll be left only to able to attract more low-paid, low-skilled jobs to our city. I'm really concerned for many residents in my ward and across the city. They are really struggling. They can't make ends meet. The pressures of the cost of living, cuts to benefits, rise in taxes, not a penny more, remember that. Rise in energy and water bills are on the horizon in April. The budget seeks to increase the actual council tax element, taking out adult social care, by 3%. And yes, this is pretty much in line with inflation and things cost more each year. But we're asking for people to pay more for less. I will, of course, listen to the debate, as I have already, and the rest of it. But at this current moment in time, I can't support the budget with these in there. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Antunes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Firstly, I'm fairly new to the council. I had the privilege of being elected in May. I had the further privilege of joining the independent group here, which I have thoroughly enjoyed in my time. During that period, I've also been appointed to internal audit and to the combined authority overview and scrutiny and the budget working group. So I have had a lot of opportunity to see what Cambridge is doing and what Peterborough is doing. When I arrived, my first introduction to internal audit was that we were sitting in this position with 3 years unaudited accounts. We have currently 500 million in debt. £1 in every 5 is used to service that debt, I believe. The current budget I have grave concerns about, but again, to echo everything that's been said tonight, the collaborative support and working groups, that of Cecilia, which I've noticed very much so, there's a huge amount of graft and investment gone into this budget. However, we have a situation where the risks, the internal improvement panel have identified the risks as higher, medium to high. We have limited reserves. I'm not going to echo everything that's been said before, but we have a situation where to achieve 22 million in savings, 2 million a month roughly, that needs to happen almost straight away. In a time where we are going to be going through dramatic change, and I hark back to my professional career in business transformation and asset management, change costs, and has been echoed earlier, redundancies, pensions, 2P, etc., all cost. There's also hidden costs with change management, which is productivity. You lose those individuals who may be doing effective jobs. You have to retrain new staff. You have to restructure. All of these are significant costs that also take considerable time. When staff at the coalface, and much as the group has mentioned here, they scrutinise figures in a room, I've spent a considerable amount of time going to talk to officers and members of the staff at the coalface. They are struggling at this moment in time to deliver the services that the council are requiring of them. We have cuts coming. We have budget cuts and staff cuts coming. I have grave concerns as to whether that can be sustained in the long term. If we're looking at moving forward from this position, I cannot see If we were in a stable status quo position and we were looking for savings and we were looking for improvements and efficiency gains, I could understand that. But when we're in a situation of dramatic change and uncertainty with very low reserves, higher risks, I cannot see that being a sustainable and achievable goal. Last year, those risks, deficits and savings were lower and we didn't achieve them. This year, they're higher, and yet we seem to believe we can achieve them. Moving forward from that point, the internal improvement panel recommended that the transformation programme be brought to internal audit. I must agree with that. I think that is a necessity. I feel that overview and scrutiny of the budget and the ongoing process is absolutely essential. What I have seen is ultimately quite often overview and scrutiny and internal audit comments and observations may be, and again this is a personal observation, be paid lip service to. There are conflicts of interest which need to be addressed, which are fairly straightforward and can be easily addressed. I'm concerned that all of these things, when compounded, lead us to a position where I have little confidence, to be blunt, that this budget can be managed in the long term. Looking at those members tonight who are considering abstention, I reflected on this long and hard over the last few weeks, and there can, in my humble opinion, be only two decisions. You either support the budget or you must vote against the budget. You either are confident we can make this happen and that everything is realistic and achievable, in which case you have surety to do that. If you don't, you must vote against, because it brings back the budget to a further round of review, which cross-party consultation, overview and scrutiny, and alternative options may be considered. To summarise, I feel if we accept the budget, we will put frontline staff under impossible pressure. They will not have the resources to deliver the service. They will be under fire from our residents. They will be under fire from councillors who will be ultimately seeking additional resources. I'm protecting, I believe, the council's reputation as well, because ultimately, if we fail to deliver this budget and the deliverables under that budget, and we go to, and my colleague here has mentioned, if we have to actually go further to a further moratorium on spend, that will defer, again, future spend and future services. If we are maintaining buildings and we're simply deferring spend, we're just pushing that can or kicking that can down the road. Finally, I think we should be honest with the residents. Efficiency savings, under a definition, are to achieve the same level of service at a more effective cost. What I see is that actually we are cutting service. And that is my observations when talking to officers at the front line. If we are going to adopt a budget, I would suggest that we bring more overview and scrutiny to the table. We bring in the transformation panel to audit as recommended by the improvement panel, and that we are actually honest with the residents. And I think they'll accept that. If we are cutting services and we need to do that to make this budget work, then we need to do so. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Antunes. Now, a rather unusual request, but I accepted it today after taking advice. Councillor Iqbal is not allowed to attend the meeting at the moment, or is unable to attend, in which case he also can't vote, but he is able to comment. So, Councillor Amjad Iqbal, you have a question this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I would like to make some comments on the budget. First, I'd like to address Councillor Hogg, where he states that it's a Labour administration budget. I would disagree with that. It's not a Labour administration budget, it's an FSWG budget. And why I'm saying that is that all parties have their representatives representing at the FSWG level. Me being a part of the FSTW, we always had the opportunity to scrutinise officers, bring ideas. We had an action log where we gave the officers the opportunity to do research and come back to us with ideas, and if the ideas were feasible or acceptable, we took them on board. So I would say that this budget is an FSWG budget, not the Labour or the administration budget. Now, people who've been at council for a long time, I remember David Seaton some time ago stood up in the chamber and said that this is a Conservative administration budget. But after the improvement panel got involved, the chairman, Eleanor, said that when the budget is presented to the chamber, it's not the administration's budget, but it is the chamber's budget. So I would say that the budget that's before us today is the chamber's budget. Now, what I would suggest that we should give significant weight to is the report or the comment made by the independent improvement panel. What they're saying that we have received a degree of assurance behind the process and the methodology used to arrive at the growth figures, and in general terms are satisfied that the process behind the budget is robust. So I think based on that, I think we should put significant weight on that on that statement that they're happy with the process, and we should go ahead and support the budget. Now, I think it's important that we need to understand as well is that, and I think what Councillor Howard said, we need to show a united front. We need to show to the improvement panel that we're united on the budget. Yes, it's a difficult budget. You know, there are some positives in it, there's some negatives in it. However, in the given circumstances, I feel that this is a balanced budget and everybody should support the budget. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Councillor Rafiq.
That comes around quick, doesn't it? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I don't want to echo too much of what everyone else has already said, but I just want to mention something in my ward, Paston and Walton, regarding Ipswich Park, which Councillor Allen has already mentioned. Yeah, in my ward of Paston and Walton, we don't have many open green spaces, but we're very lucky to have Ipswich Park, which is a fantastic park, which hosts multiple events. Last year, for the first time, it hosted prayers on Ipswich Park, which was organised by myself, residents and the council. Our park is already suffering as it has no public toilet facilities due to budgets, and volunteers, including the Friends of Ipswich Park, already maintain parts of the park on a regular basis. I'm just going to read a quick statement from the Friends of Ipswich Park. The award-winning park has held green flag status for the last 18 years. It's one of only 3 flag status parks in the city and remains the main social meeting and recreational area within the ward. The Friends of Ipswich Park are highly recognised by Peterborough City Council as the main representative community body for the park. Whilst we understand savings need to be made in the current climate, we feel that the reduction in services resulting from a £26,000 budget reduction is likely to have a negative impact on the appearance of the park and quickly negate all the excellent work that Aragon ground staff has done over the years to get the park in such good shape. Yeah, we are conscious, obviously, of the council's finances and accepting that all departments will be expected to make a contribution towards the budget. We prove this by working with the council to suggest alternatives. Cabinet member Councillor Ellis, we urge you and your cabinet to reconsider these proposals. This was sent on the 12th of January, 39 days ago, and Councillor Ellis was invited to the Friends of Ipswich Park, but you didn't come. However, I did email you yesterday for clarification, which you gave a very generic response. But 2 of the points that you did mention is that in the coming weeks, you would be keen to meet with us. And then a second point that you mentioned is that this is the first time any ward councillor has contacted you about these budget proposals? Yeah. Alternative savings to the budget could have been made. One example is the Cuckoo's Hollow bridges. A local firm in the city whose core business is building bridges, some of which already span across our parkways, could have done this for half the cost. They weren't even invited to tender, even though they expressed an interest. So I'm being quick and straight to the point, and I'm against the budget based on this.
Thank you, Councillor Rafiq. Councillor Skibsted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to add a few comments to what's already been spoken about. I echo the sentiments of my own group and also recognise the hard work being done by officers and the FSWG to achieve some savings. I'm very happy that the LIDAR will be saved and indeed promoted to become used by more people and in many different ways, with a more long-term approach being now taken involving Friends of Peterborough Lido. This is long overdue. However, I'm also concerned about certain items that remain in this budget. To name a few, the uncertainty over the library and museums and the reduction of attendance in the city's parks. I'm a regular user of Central Park and agree that this cut could lead to increased antisocial behaviour. I'm also aware that actually getting fines for fly tipping is quite rare, and so increasing the fine will potentially make collecting the money even more difficult. If a resident refuses to pay a high fine of £1,000, it could go to court, and in these cases the money will not go to the council. So I cannot see how this will bring in revenue for the council to the tune of £600,000, and fly tipping is an enormous problem in this city. Residents are concerned that they continue to pay more and get less for their money. This is how it comes across to them. And with these cuts, which in fact will not bring in much revenue for the council, but are very noticeable for people in this city. For this reason, I feel unable to vote for the budget and will in this instance abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I've had hands up from a couple of people that have already spoken. So I will allow new points, but I'm not going to allow tit for tat kind of, I didn't say that, I didn't say this, because that's somebody's point of view. That's a bit, okay, I'll allow a point of accuracy, Councillor Ellis, at this point, yeah. Yeah, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a point of accuracy regarding Cuckoo's Hollow. It was actually funded from the combined authority, so it's not money from this budget. So it's not revenue budget, so it couldn't have been used anyway, even if we wanted to.
Thank you. I think most people would know that. So if we can avoid, no, I said, by the way, I said most, Dennis, and I've got just Councillor Hogg. Is it a new point, or are you going to be tit for tatting?
It's not tit for tat. It's just that this item that we are currently looking at is an item that is brought by the Labour cabinet for our approval. So on that basis,
are you responding to somebody else's comments, or have you got a new point as well?
The point I'm responding to the point made by Councillor Iqbal about the fact that it's an FSWG budget. It's not an FSWG budget. We are there to advise and to support, but ultimately it is the cabinet that brings this piece of work
I shall make clear for you in my summing up about the improvement panel's view on this, as previously stated over and over again. So I won't do it now because I don't want to stop the flow of debate. Now, Councillor Cole, you had your hand up. Just before you do, Councillor Ellis, is it a point of order or?
It is, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's in response to Councillor Ellis's statement about the funding. The reality is that we're here to protect the purses of the public. So, frankly, where the from is irrelevant if we've overpaid for the bridge.
Point taken. Thank you very much. Again, I'm trying not to get into between people. Otherwise, we might be here all night about who said what to who. Councillor Wigan, I'll add you to the list. So, what we have on the list at the moment, folks, is Councillor Cole, and I'll come to her in a moment, and Councillor Wiggins. And I don't have anybody else. Wiggins, sorry. Yeah, there's only one. We don't want another one, Chris, no. Councillor Cole and Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and through you. So I just wanted to, the financial pressures in children's services has been mentioned by several councillors this evening, but I just wanted to thank Councillor Imtiaz Ali, who has, with the support of the FSWG, pushed for and included children's homes within this budget. It's something that I am very supportive of, and I'm glad that the Greens are also supportive of that element of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I just have Councillor Wiggin remaining. Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I am, of course, not the first Councillor Wiggin in Peterborough City Council and the second after my father, but there is only one of each of us, and I'm sure many people are glad of that. Firstly, Mr Deputy Mayor, can I associate myself with your comments and those of others, sending my best wishes to Mr Mayor, who is, of course, my ward colleague. It was only last Thursday we were both present at the charity event at Tavan, which I thought was a brilliant event. So the news about his health was a shock to all of us. I think Councillor Hogg's already made my point about the budget, so we won't go into that as whose responsibility it is. I'm sure you'll cover that yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Elsey mentioned how he doesn't like net zero spending. We get it, he's a climate change sceptic. But when it comes to budget setting, our efforts on net zero would not be approved if they were not invest to save. So they reduce fuel costs, electricity costs and so on, all of which saves money, which is what we need to be doing. So they're not just about climate change, it is having a positive impact on our budget. Councillor Ormston raised an interesting point about whether or not this is a chamber. So the issue should be addressed in the property review, but there seems to be no clear plan for the town hall. It's badly insulated with a dysfunctional heating system and lots of other issues, so it will cost millions to repair, as you can see in the capital programme schedules for the next couple of years. Currently, it's not being used for meetings. It's not needed for offices, as council already has a surplus of office space. So I don't understand why this isn't included in our locality asset review. Indeed, Councillor Hogg says sell it. The Liberal Democrats have called for that for a long time. The issues raised by Friends of Itter Park, Friends of Central Park, Friends of Woodston Library show why we need a community governance review across the city to allow those areas that want it to form parish or neighbourhood councils. Those areas with parish councils have seen much better discussions and outcomes than unparished areas like Stanground, Walton, Woodston and Park Ward, due to having that extra layer of government stand up for local residents and raise money and provide funding and have the power to run these services. As good as the individual city councillors are, and some of them have mentioned what they've been trying to do in their communities, there's only so much they can do on their own. In addition, this issue will only get worse with local government reorganisation, as other people have mentioned as well. It's likely to see some of this decision-making pulled away from Peterborough, so we need stronger local communities. So I'd really like to see us look at whether we can bring in that extra layer of government to support our communities. We're still suffering an issue with communications. I found out the Lido was saved from the media, not by being told as a councillor first. This is not how things should be done. I've raised issues with the communications from the council not being proactive in explaining where the money comes from. For example, the bridge outside this building to the embankment isn't being funded by the council, it's being funded by grants, but that isn't being made clear to the public. They think we're spending money on that rather than libraries, community centres and the other services they want to see, which this budget is considering whether we should keep. Also, comments on council official Facebook posts that question our integrity as councillors are not being debunked, such as comments about how much bribes a councillor is taking, or the Hilton Hotel's only there to house asylum seekers. It's all untrue, but by failing to shut down these myths, it damages all of us. The FSWG is a much better group than it was, and the situation with regards to budget setting is so much better than it was before you were council leader, Mr Deputy Mayor. And I thank everyone involved in the process for their hard work and contributions, and I particularly enjoy Councillor Howard's chairing style. However, for the reasons Councillor Hogg set out, there is still considerable room for improvement, and we will be seeking further changes going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to allow Councillor Elsey, and I'm assuming it's a point of accuracy, Councillor Elsey.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, it is. Councillor Wiggin doesn't know me well enough to know what my position is on net zero. I made it quite clear that I was neither for nor against in my speech. I merely used it as an example of a project that we're funding that we're not going to be here to finish. So he doesn't know whether I'm a net zero skeptic. What he does know is I'm pragmatic and a realist. So I thank him to get his facts straight before he starts making commentary about me.
I'm sure he knows now. Members, I have no more people on the list to speak. I've got some remarks of my own to make in my capacity as group leader, as well as chair of the meeting tonight. So I won't be going back to you for more comments, okay? Because I think we've given enough time to everybody on this. It depends what I say. No, I've given you fair warning. We don't want tit for tat. Fine, if it's something that's inaccurate, that's slightly different. Okay, I must welcome Eleanor Kelly down there she's hiding down the back down there. She can wave to us all. So it was remiss of me not to welcome the chair of the improvement panel that was set up some time ago under my leadership at the time. So let's just deal with, in terms of the budget, the position of whose responsibility it is. Look, it would be foolish for any of you to think that this is not a collective responsibility. And whether that collective responsibility goes through FSWG, which it does, it then should filter back down to every single member of your groups. So collectively, whether it starts there, it's a council responsibility to set a budget, not the Labour administration as it is. And I would have said exactly the same to you when I was running the council as leader. It was how many times I cannot sit here in good conscience with Nick Sanford in the room and say anything else, okay? Because he and I used to have a robust debate. He would always say, it's your Conservative administration's budget, not ours. It's nonsense, as the chair of the improvement panel has said numerous times. It is the collective responsibility of this council to set a budget, and we'd sit here or adjourn until we did. Now, if you want to absolve yourself of any responsibility, then why do you take part in budget discussions if you are of that mind? It would be a waste of time. So the chief executive has confirmed, and the monitoring officer would confirm, it is the council's responsibility to do this. That's all of us. It becomes the council budget when it is passed. And I'm now going into my 20th year of council budgets. Been there, got the video, T-shirt, done it all. And I'm glad I'm not sat where Dennis is, because it's exactly the same. If we were running the council, we would be presenting the same budget with minor tweaks, because we are where we are, and the financial reality is the financial reality. No budget is perfect. It's a series of forecasts that we set forward, and I'm sure, Dennis, you're realising the very same thing, that you do your best in forecasting, and the team work incredibly hard at trying to put those forecasts together. There was reference that we supported the budget. I'm sorry, Christine, I will reference you because you mentioned this, that in fact your assumption, by the way, was completely wrong in that the Conservatives would be supporting this budget. The Conservatives have a free vote on the budget. Some may support it, some may abstain, some may vote against it. I don't know. We operate in a democratic group. And the fact is, that's the reality. And just because I and Councillor Howard signed the budget consultation document is not an endorsement of the budget then or now. We were just being grown-ups. Because it was the fact that we were asked to endorse the consultation. So I personally, like every year, whether it was the Conservative budget or whoever's budget, you're never going to be happy with 100% of what's in that budget. But we have to make the very best of how we put that budget together. And it beggars belief that we get to this point and people haven't said what they wanted to say. I heard a councillor saying, well, we need more time. I don't know. Why? We've had time to debate this in public and in private. in our FSWG. And it's an awful name. I hated it from the very beginning because the public will be going, and I'll say it again, Financial Sustainability Working Group, where we get together, we discuss the issues, and we come up with our best plans. But again, they are not perfect. And you won't be happy with everything in the budget. But what is the alternative? The alternative is you come with plans and proposals that you've already run through officers to see if your alternative suggestions can be workable. And I think in Councillor Ali's case, he came up with some very good things for the budget, and they've been incorporated into the budget. There are things that are always red herrings, the Lido being one of them. It takes the public's eye off the budget and the real issues, like the Dementia Resource Centre that slipped by us all last year. So I hope, like you, Christian, there are no things like that in the budget. And whether the savings are made or not made, you are doing your best effort to make them. And we should support the officers in that budget. So when we come to the vote in a moment, I will be voting for the budget. Not because I'm wholly endorsing Dennis or the Labour Party or the Labour Party cabinet, because I think it's the right thing to do for the city and residents, given the financial challenges that we have. And for me to sit here again and say anything otherwise when I've preached to everybody in this council chamber that you should support the budget, I just couldn't in good conscience say anything else. My group have differing views. Some, as I say, I don't know how they're going to vote. They all have a different view. If Irfan Khan was here tonight, he would have been speaking again about the cuts to Central Park and, as Councillor Rafiq eloquently put it, Itter Park. There are many things that we as councillors remain unhappy with. And I don't know how to solve that problem. And whoever's in charge of the council needs to wrestle with that. And the Labour group will be finding the heat is on them. When you make these decisions, whether it's cabinet decisions, we got some interesting things coming up, and the heat is on you. Dare I mention Warrington Fields? Looks like I might be chairing that. Thanks. So I'm not going to say much more about it. Save to say, my position I've made clear. The group will do what they want to do, and members in this chamber will do what they want to do. But you're only voting for a budget for the residents of Peterborough, and you have to do what you can do and make the best of it. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As nobody else was going to say it. Right. I think, Councillor Dennis Jones, you reserve your right to speak, so you get a chance to speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. See, I did say it for you after all. I think you've said almost everything that I possibly could say. This, I would suggest most people in the chamber have already made their mind up, okay? Body language, the way you look at people, little things that have gone around. So this isn't really for people in the chamber. I don't think anybody is for turning at this point in time. I hope I'm wrong. But the thing is, we all go on about fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Don't freeze. Don't flight. Don't fly. Come out fighting. Come out and join us in that fight. Raise your sights. Don't talk about one issue. As the Deputy Mayor has said, this is a budget for this city, wherever the money comes from. I can through and I can pick issues with every single person in here. Thank you for supporting the Wombles, but I've brought Harry Machin and Mark Fishpool and others only last week into this chamber. We need to build our infrastructure, okay? All our infrastructure needs rebuilding, but we need to build our social infrastructure with no money. So we need volunteers. We need those people. I am passionate about net zero. I was a member of Greenpeace probably before Nicola was born. But the fact of the matter is we have to work towards a sustainable future. And part of that sustainable future is a sustainable budget. And that is what we have to vote for tonight. Don't look too far down the road. You can throw stones at anything and anybody if you want to, as eloquently spoken by the Deputy Mayor this evening. I'd like to thank, as we've all done, I don't want to turn this into an Oscar speech, because it's about the officers. It's about the people who've burnt the midnight oil. You know, Wayne will know, and anybody who's been in this position, the calls at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. It ain't good news when the 151 officer is ringing you at 10 o'clock at night. It ain't good news. Let me tell you, it's lovely to hear from her, but not at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, a laugh of recognition. The improvement panel could not have been more supportive over the 3 years. They could not have given more to us, either through governance, through finances. And we know this ain't the right, you know, we know the finances aren't as good as it could be. We know where our reserves should be. And my goodness, Matt and the team, the CLT, we're pushing every inch of the way, sitting down with directors. Where can you find even more savings? Because we have, folks, a legal duty and obligation to produce a balanced budget. And like I say, I'm sure Wayne, you know, doesn't want to be sat here now, but actually, you know, it's a job. We've got to do it. I enjoy it and I endure it in equal measures. And I'd like to thank, and also without wishing to embarrass, I'd like to congratulate Eleanor Kelly, you know, who, if you don't know, was awarded a Commander of the British Empire in the recent honours list. Not only has she done great stuff here, but probably a lot of people don't know, and I don't wish to embarrass on the work she did with the survivors and the families of Grenfell. These are the kinds of things that go on under the waterline that people never see while we're looking at these issues. I love Itter Park. I use it regularly. I walk my dog there. I go into Central Park. These are places that mean a lot to me. I hate making cuts. And I go back to something, those of you, if you can do LGA training, do it. Because two things have stuck with me. Everybody comes into this business to make your world, and by turn, our world, a better place. And the biggest problems you often have is within your own party. So let's not call this a Labour budget. It isn't. It's a cross-party budget. We talk about the Mayor's car at item 7 and we save £7.87. But the item below it, all out elections, conveniently gets overlooked because there are some people that actually like campaigning all the year round and they make a lot of money out of it. No names, no pack drill. They know who they are. But the fact is, and don't run away with the idea that the large parties whistle down the pit and Labour and Conservative have hot and cold running candidates coming up. They don't. We don't. The world doesn't look like that anymore. And this is where, whatever your political hue, we've got to stand together on this one. And we have to put our differences aside. I don't want to make the cuts that we are proposing. But what I want you to do, don't fly, don't freeze, come out as we're doing, come out swinging. People have mentioned TK Maxx. People have mentioned things that have been systemic failures for years, whoever sits in this seat. And Rome wasn't built in a day, guys. It really wasn't. We all have to work towards these, bring them to the table. And there's one thing I will say is I've never been a fan of full council. Never. I think it's too much grandstanding. But what I have appreciated is when questions are asked of the cabinet and they're asked of me, I've become keenly aware that it's a key part of the democratic process. This is what we're here for. We're here to be able to account. We are here to be questioned by members of the public. We are here, you know, we must suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. That's the life we chose. There's nobody here who's not here by choice. And one of the things we must do is vote for a balanced budget. That is not an option. It's a legal, mature, responsible thing that we must do. And as our Section 151 officer departs for pasture new, as the improvement panel You know, it comes to its end. What we must do is we must continue that together with the financials. If they're FSWG, I'm not very keen on it either. But please, tonight, why vote against? What is your alternative? Why haven't you spoken up? Why haven't you held us to account if you really think it's a Labour budget? This is your grandstanding for your voters. In this chamber, you know what you need to do, and that is vote for a balanced budget that, irrespective of whose flag is flying over the town hall. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
And I thought the BAFTAs ended on Sunday.
Conclave.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll turn to Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Would you like to sum up, Councillor Jamil?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I don't think I can follow those two. Needless to say, I don't think anyone here would like to be sitting in my... I spoke to John Howard earlier. He said the same. Andy Coles in the years before us. It's not a good place to be. You know, we've all got to go away and we've all got to justify what we're doing here today. And I've got to say, we are here. We were elected to do this last May. We've been in post just under a year. We have gone out of our way with FSWG. We've listened. We've seen what people have said about the Lido, the libraries. We're working on the libraries. It's not an ideal situation. We don't want to be in this situation, but we have to set a balanced budget. And officers have burnt the midnight oil, as we said, and we are here today, and we have to make this decision. If, for example, you want to vote against, we've got 3 weeks, I think, to then put in a budget that balances. You know, if you think you can get enough scrutinies, and if you can get enough FSGW sessions out that we've not managed to do since May last year, then, you know what I mean, you're better people than we've been on the FSWG, because we have had some serious sessions and we've asked some serious questions of our officers and we've sent them back and we've come up with ideas to go and explore. But this is the culmination of all those sessions, plus the budget scrutiny sessions all members were invited to. You know, so everyone here has had the opportunity to look at this in stage form, come up with ideas. So we come here today and we say, well, actually, I was involved, my party was involved, but actually I'm not going to vote for this. Come on, Alex. I'm picking on you because you said I'm going to vote against. But my point is, and I'm sorry just to pick on you, my point is, this is a culmination of all of our work. And that's not just the Labour group. We're just the ones who, you know, it's the red colour on the door at the moment. If John had been sitting here today, it would have been the blue. And I'd tell you, it wouldn't have been very different to what you're seeing today. So therefore, I appeal to you. It would be a really good look to those looking to invest in our city to see that we have a united council, a council that's working best for the residents of Peterborough. Therefore, I would ask you to back the budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. I think we've had a good debate on this agenda item. So in accordance with the Local Authorities Standing Orders England Regulations 2001 and Council Standing Orders 24.6, the decision on this item will be taken by a recorded vote. So I'll hand over to Rachel to manage this vote, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and through you. Councillors, we are now voting on the recommendations set out in the Budget 25-26 and the Medium-Term Financial Strategy. It is recommended that Council approve the proposed revenue and capital budgets for 25-26. A proposed council tax increase of 4.99% in 25-26, 26-27 and 27-28. The robustness statement as per section 25 of the Local Government Act, and the medium-term financial strategy 25-26, 27-28, and accompanying strategies set out in the appendices A to N. Members, when I say your name, please indicate whether you are for, against or abstaining. Councillor Ahmed.
Against.
Councillor Imtiaz Ali.
Abstain.
Councillor Zamir Ali.
4.
Councillor Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Antunes.
Against.
Councillor Ayres.
4.
Councillor B.
4.
4. Councillor Bisbee.
Against.
Councillor Blakemore Creedon.
4.
Councillor Andrew Bond.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Bond.
Against.
Councillor Boyce.
Against.
Councillor Cole.
4.
Councillor Day.
Abstain.
Councillor Dowson.
4.
Councillor Ellis.
4.
Councillor Elsey.
Against.
Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Abstain.
Councillor Saqib Farouk.
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Fitzgerald.
4.
Councillor Judy Fox.
Against.
Councillor John Fox.
Against.
Councillor Harper.
Against.
Councillor Hemraj.
4.
Councillor Peter Hiller.
Against.
Councillor Hogg.
Against.
Councillor Howard.
4.
Councillor Numan Iqbal.
4.
Councillor Jamil.
4.
Councillor Jenkins.
4.
Councillor Alison Jones.
4.
Councillor Dennis Jones.
You'll be surprised. 4.
Councillor Mahmood.
4.
Councillor McNally.
4.
Councillor Ormston.
Abstain.
Councillor Perkins.
Abstain.
Councillor Kayoum. 4. Councillor Rafiq.
Against.
Councillor Rangzeb.
4.
Councillor Ray.
Abstain.
Councillor Rush.
Against.
Councillor Seeger.
Against.
Councillor Anne Shahid.
Against.
Councillor Asif Shahid.
Against, please, Rachel.
Thank you. Councillor Skibstead.
Abstain.
Councillor Strangward.
4.
Councillor Thirlbourne.
4.
Councillor Walsh.
Abstain.
Councillor Warren.
Abstain.
And Councillor Wiggin.
Against.
We just want to check our figures together. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, members. The results are in. There is 21 in favour, there are 18 against, and there were 11 abstentions. Therefore, this is agreed.
Thank you very much, team. Team Constitutional Services doing an excellent job managing the process. So, folks, we are on item 9B, which is executive and committee recommendations to council. And the first item is the Cabinet updated corporate strategy for 2025 to 2028. Councillor Jones, as leader, would you like to move the recommendations?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And this is about the updated corporate strategy 2025 to 2028. This refresh helps us to stay in tune with the changing needs of our city and its residents, while seizing new opportunities and tackling challenges. Since our last strategy in 2022, Peterborough's seen a lot of changes. We've grown quickly, attracting new investment like the Odeon IMAX cinema and the upcoming Fraser's department store. The third phase of ARU Peterborough is now open, focusing on higher paid careers in STEM and green technology sectors. We're facing financial constraints and increasing demand for our services. To address these, we've updated our strategy to make sure our priorities are achievable within our medium-term financial strategy. We've also taken valuable feedback from the Shaping Our City consultation, which took place during September and October 2024, and reflected on this in the version you will see. Greater emphasis on the city centre, culture and leisure. The prevention, independence and resilience priorities are also rewritten so they are clearer for people to understand, and the strength of the priorities to support people with additional leads into adulthood and beyond. Our core priorities for the next few years are the economy and inclusive growth, prevention, independence and resilience, sustainable future city council, and children and young people. These are detailed in the report. If there is a priority in which you are particularly interested, your contribution to it will be very welcome. By working towards these priorities, we aim to improve the lives of every resident in Peterborough, making our city a place of opportunity for all. We'll continue to work in a way that aligns with our organisational values of transparency, inclusivity, collaboration, respect, innovation and integrity. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your support in delivering this strategy for the benefit of our city and its residents. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Jamil.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to second the updated corporate strategy and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, folks, do we have any speakers on this item, or is it just agreed? Agreed? Half the people are in the loo, so sorry about that. It's just the members of the public that are watching, there's an evacuation.
That's probably my fault.
Well, it was your impressive speech that people needed.
Leaving in droves.
It just prompted me to say, I honestly don't mind people nipping out to the loo if they need to, or we can have a comfort break. But I don't think we've got much substantive stuff left. So I'm hoping we all agree to press on. If you need to use the loo, just then pop out. Okay, so that's agreed. Okay, fine. Thank you. Right, the next item would be item now 9C, I believe that's right. 9C. Which is the Constitution and Ethics Committee Review and Amendment of Delegated Powers. Councillor Hemmerage, as chair of that committee, would you like to move the recommendations now?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The Constitution and Ethics Committee recommends to full council the adoption of the amendment to propose changes to section 3.14.10F of part 3, section 3, delegations, officers, delegations. Thank you.
Lovely. And do you have a seconder for that?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to second that.
And do you reserve your right to speak?
I do indeed reserve my right to speak.
You're glad I reminded you, I know. Okay, folks. Any speakers on this? Do we have anybody on this?
Agreed.
Agreed. We're motoring now, you see. Thank you all very much. So that is agreed. Sorry, Richard. You didn't get a chance there. So we'll move to agenda item 10 is in relation to the record of executive decisions as detailed in your papers tonight, 287 to 290. Must have been a very light period. The leader will introduce this item and any questions will be answered by the leader unless he refers them to another member. I remind councillors that they should ask questions on the decisions in the reports. All questions should be relevant to the decision itself. Should I feel that any preamble is unreasonably long, I will instruct councillors to ask the question immediately. So can members note once I've moved on, questions will not be accepted from previous pages. Councillor Dennis Jones, would you like to introduce the item, please?
I will indeed, Mr Deputy Mayor, and happy to take questions and refer them where applicable.
Members, forgive me because I've just got to scoot through to the pages. 287, I think. 287. So, members, pages, starting with page 287. Any questions on 287? No? Okay. 288, Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Just regarding the special urgency waiver of call-in provision for this grant funding, presumably we knew that this was coming up because it happens every year. Now, don't get me wrong, government does have a habit of surprising us with the actual date that it comes out, but surely this should have been in the forward plan. And I note that the announcement was made on the 20th, and yet the decision wasn't made until the 5th. So that was within 5 days. So my first question on this, and I do have a supplemental, is are we sure that this really needed to be special urgency, or could it have been done in the normal course of business?
I'd like to refer that. Thank you for your question, Councillor Hogg. Councillor Cole, will you be kind enough to pick it up for me, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, and thank you, Councillor Hogg. So the government announced this funding quite late on, and the reason why this grant funding was expedited through a cabinet member decision is so that the funding would be in place and providers would be able to offer holiday activities and food programme to vulnerable children and those children who claim free school meals. So the reason why it was delegated in this way is so that vulnerable children didn't miss out on holiday activities and food vouchers during the February half term and the Easter holidays.
So now on to my supplemental question. Obviously, I've looked at the papers and the deadlines for providers to put forward their suggestions to take part in this scheme are quite tight. So can I be assured that we've reached out to those providers that have provided previously, i.e. last year or the year before, but did we also reach out to those people who were too late last time for whatever reason, just because they've obviously wanted to do it last year? Did we reach out to those that were unsuccessful as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thank you, Councillor Hogg. So in terms of providers of the HAF scheme, I will ask the team to provide me with how the procurement of those providers was looked at, and I will ask them to contact you accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, so we are for the moment still on 288. No, okay, that's fine. And 289 it goes on to, but it's the same thing. And 290 it says, this is the part of the proceedings where you get to ask any question you like, because it's blank. Not really. Okay, so that is that. the item over, item agenda 10 on the agenda, I should say. Item 11 is in relation to a record of combined authority decisions made since the last meeting. I will refer any questions to the relevant combined authority rep. Otherwise, the same rules will apply as the previous item. Members, these decisions can be found in your agenda packs at pages 291 to 310. I'll take each meeting in turn, and members, please refer to the title of the decision when asking a question. It's not helpful that we only get the actual committees. If you're happy, I'll do them. I won't do them each item. I'll do them as a page of items, because otherwise I've got to read every single one out. I'm sure you don't want me to do that. So there are a number of them on page 293. Has anybody got any questions on those meetings on page 293? I'll give you a moment to read them, which you should have already read them and memorized them. Okay. 294 is blank. 295, page 295 in your agenda pack. Again, various committees. I'm glad you haven't, because it would be difficult for me to know who is on them. A note for Democratic Services is I can't see it there. That's why. Oh no, I've got it. Sorry, I'm not reading. I'm not reading properly. It's my eyesight. It's like Lynn's. It's rather small on there. Okay, so I do know, but nobody's got any questions anyway. Right. Okay. Agenda item 12. Go on then.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
That's all right. What page are we on?
Slightly discombobulated.
I know it is a bit like that.
So page 305, we've got the meeting of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee decisions summary. Am I reading from a wrong piece of? No,
that is right, but we're not there yet.
I'm bob on. Okay, sorry. Okay, I thought.
I'm assuming it's not been put in the wrong place and numbered wrongly, so we're not there yet.
Okay, that's
so
fine.
what we were referring to was pages 291 to 310. So hang on a second then. So we have to go a bit further. 305. Sorry, Christian. Yes, you're quite right. 305. What would you like to know?
So there is an item here about the Fletton Keys footbridge, Signet Bridge.
Yep.
Now, I understand that we've basically gone to the combined authority to make up a shortfall from the Towns Fund that was supposed to secure. And I just wanted to know that there was an inference that we were looking to do some cost engineering around the bridge. And has been previously talked about in this meeting that there is a supplier in Peterborough that was willing to do the work in Warrington on the footbridges there. Have we approached them for a cost of the bridge, the Signet Bridge? If they're willing to do the Warrington bridges at half price, maybe that they may be willing to do a deal on the Signet Bridge.
Sorry, I found out why I was looking at the wrong bit of paper. Now, I'm not sure he'll know the answer to this, but it's Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The procurement exercise we used for Signet Bridge was Milestone. So that's would have been used by the combined authorities paid for the majority of the Signet Bridge, including the extra 2 million, which was allowed. So as far as I know, it was just with Milestone.
I'm just thinking that if we haven't got enough money to do the job, i.e. that we're going to have to not do it, if we can find another supplier that is able to do the job cheaper so that we don't have to put our money to it, that might be a good solution. And as we've got a company in Peterborough that is willing to build bridges for us, no pun intended, it might be worthwhile reaching out to them to see if that they can do the deal.
Well, I would say I would welcome to have details about that company for them to contact officers.
I'm sure Councillor Rafiq will be able to furnish you with their details.
I've heard this before from a number of councillors, but if they can contact officers, but there is a procurement exercise that they have to go through. It's not just about cost.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Elsie. Do you have?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Firstly, Councillor Ellis says that they went through a procurement process. Awarding the contract to somebody who was already a supplier is not a procurement exercise, it's an award of a contract. And secondly, Councillor Ellis suggests that the said company haven't met with officers. They met with me and James Collingridge several times to discuss the propositions, and the award still went to Milestone. Thank you.
Well, what can I say? So now, thank you very much for that. There are no more questions on those combined authority issues. Agenda item 12, motions on notice, there are none, which we agreed. Agenda item 13, reports to council, there are no reports to council, as agreed. And agenda item 14, Children's Improvement Board update. There has not been a board meeting since the last meeting, so there will be no update from Councillor Cole this evening. So, I think we've ended 5 minutes early, according to the team in the sweepstake down here. I don't know which one of them's going to win. It is 8:25. So thank you, members, for your indulgence tonight. But please remain seated for a few moments further for an informal meeting regarding the mayor-elect. Can all members of the press and public leave the meeting at this time? So I'll just give you a moment to do that.
We're just going to do it.
Yep. And I wish you all a safe journey home, those that are going, but for those that are staying, please stay here, remain